Hello guys and welcome to a brand new video. Today we're gonna be looking at the best James Bond actors. Now this is our list, but let us know what is your top list of James Bond actors. Now if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe with post notifications on, and let's go into the video. Number 6. George Lazenby. Given that he only played James Bond in a single release in the 1969 On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it is easy to write off George Lazenby's short-lived time in the role as a mere misstep. It certainly doesn't help that the producers coerced Sean Connery to come back one more time for Diamonds Are Forever, after Lazenby had his chance as Bond. However, Lazenby's film is now well regarded among fans for its efforts to lend Bond a personal story, and the actor himself is praised for bringing something fresh to a character moviegoers had already seen on screen several times throughout the 1960s. His Majesty's Secret Service has gained something of a cult following over time, and showed us a vulnerable, more emotional, and Daniel Craig-like Bond, well before its time. But was George Lazenby the right man to bring that version to life? To a lot of people, he was not. Lazenby may have looked the part, but he was more of a brawler than a refined gentleman spy. And we can never forgive the moment Lazenby turns to the camera and breaks the fourth wall by saying, "This never happened to the other fellow." Something that never happened in any of the James Bond movies. And if you guys don't know what the fourth wall break is, that's when the actor is talking to the camera, aka the viewers. His defining moment as James Bond is a bare-knuckle beach fight that drew on Lazenby's martial arts background and would stand up in even the grittiest modern-day Bond films. And as for his best line as James Bond is when James Bond's head off on some bloody business, but not before telling his associates to just keep my martini cool. Number 5. Roger Moore. Some fans might not love Roger Moore's more playful, goofy version of 007, but if you discount Connery's role in the unofficial release, Moore has played the character more times on the screen than any actor in history. His era of Bond films was responsible for proving the series' longevity after Connery's departure and Lazenby's one-off. He also proved that Bond can work with a light-hearted approach. He was known for his laid-back approach, in which his good humor and womanizing became just as prominent in his character as his actual work as a secret agent. In other words, he is the fun Bond. Which sounds a little strange given how much bloodshed and misogyny followed Roger Moore's 007 around. His endless jokes temper the violence, and with his charm he sells some of the silliest gadgets the franchise has seen so far. His best lines as James Bond is from The Spy Who Loved Me opening sequence. Bond is leaving a cabin. From bed, a woman shouts out to him, "But James, I need you." Cool as ice, he turns back saying, "So does England," and then he purrs as a cat. Number 4. Timothy Dalton. Following the departure of Roger Moore after a 7-film tenure, Timothy Dalton stepped in to take over. His debut in The Living Daylights marked a creative shift for the series, making James Bond a bit more serious after the James Moore portrayal. His portrayal of James Bond became a commercial hit. However, some feel that he didn't truly capture the character in as memorable of a way as his predecessors. No wonder his second film as 007, the 1989 License to Kill, marked his final appearance in the franchise, setting the stage for a 6-year hiatus that wouldn't end until Pierce Brosnan was cast. He had the cool of the James Bond character, and he certainly looked the part. But we never got to see the Welshman's full potential, and that's because both of his 2 films were aggressively mediocre. His best film as Bond has to be The Living Daylights over License to Kill. At least Dalton feels fresh in his first outing as the super spy. His defining moment is when he kills a drug lord Sanchez at the end of License to Kill. Bloodied and bruised, Dalton sets him on fire, making James Bond more serious and dangerous. His best line as James Bond is when the hotel manager asks Bond if the suit is to his liking. Bond replies it's adequate, before adding, "I'd like a case of champagne." Bollinger RD3. Now for number 3, Pierce Brosnan. Following Timothy Dalton's brief run, Pierce Brosnan took the Bond films into a more modern era of action. While he retained the sophistication of his predecessors, Brosnan's Bond proved that the character was still relevant. His debut, GoldenEye, is also the first film in the series not to be based on Ian Fleming's stories, making his status as one of the all-time great Bonds even more impressive. He ended up starring in 4 Bond films, some of which endured as great, well-respected works of cinema, while others didn't. The World Is Not Enough, for example, received a Golden Raspberry nomination in 1999. But GoldenEye, however, is remembered as a classic in the Bond canon. The Irishman is in our top 3 because he marks the perfect midpoint between everything that makes Bond great. His gadgets are sometimes as silly as Connery's gyrocopter, but always more welcome than no gadgets at all, like the early Craig Bond. His defining moment as James Bond is actually any of his tuxedo scenes. Brosnan was also the best looking Bond in the black tie, so much so that his contract forbid him to wear a tuxedo in any other film while he held the mantle of the super spy. His best line as James Bond comes when the villainous Elektra tells Bond he could have had the world. He responds then, "The world is not enough." "Foolish sentiment," she replies, before he responds back with, "Family motto." Number 2, Daniel Craig. James Bond needed a change with the times, especially considering just how bad the franchise got it in the 2002 release, Die Another Day. Producers ultimately opted to reboot the entire franchise, telling the story of Bond's first mission as 007. Through the lens of Ian Fleming's classic Casino, Daniel Craig was perfectly cast as a more serious and visceral version of the character. Since taking over from Pierce Brosnan back in 2005, Daniel Craig has had an incredible run as James Bond. He is still the shortest Bond so far, and his appointment was controversial, but he has proven himself time and time again through the likes of Casino Royale and Skyfall. He balances the role's trademark humor with an impressive ability for action sequences, just like a good Bond should. Now, Daniel Craig expressed this interest for the role as well as a desire to step down, but he hasn't done it yet. A lot of people critiqued him at first for his physical attributes, being the first blonde James Bond, and the fact that he is good 5 or 6 inches shorter than every other Bond before him. His legendary quote, "Put it all on red," from Casino Royale is actually inspired by the real-life man who was the inspiration for the character of James Bond. The man's name was Dushko Popov. The defining moment for Daniel Craig as James Bond was the cuff check. In the Skyfall Istanbul chase scene, he jumps on the vehicle and instantly checks the cuffs on his shirt. His best line to many is in Spectre, when Bond barks stay at a security guard. That scene shows him as a rougher, more rugged Bond, something a lot of people liked. Number 1, Sean Connery. Though many men have had their martinis shaken, not stirred, since James Bond became an iconic cinematic hero, none have embodied the role quite as well as its originator. Sean Connery balanced the dry humor, the effortless charm, and the powerful skill of James Bond like no other actor before. His performance has come to define the role for all who've taken it on in his wake. And while some may come close to matching his portrayal in legitimate classics like Goldfinger, Connery is still king in the eyes of many Bond fans. He is the original James Bond for many people. He was the standard by which everyone else had to judge themselves. Connery embodied everything that defines Bond. He was the one to ask for his martini shaken, not stirred. He was the one who got his hands on all sorts of impressive gadgets for the first time. He was the one who drove around in an incredible Aston Martin. There is no denying that Connery did Bond the best. His defining moment as James Bond is in his introduction. Drenched in glamour and gambling, Connery gave us the first classic Bond, James Bond while lighting a cigarette. His best line was probably in Goldfinger, when he said, "My dear girl, there are some things that just aren't done," such as drinking Dom Perignon 53 above the temperature of 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Unfortunately, Sean Connery left this world at the age of 90 of October 31st of 2020, dying from old age. His work in cinema were legendary, and his portrayals of many characters will remain in our minds as long as we live. Rest in peace, Sean Connery. We hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to check out our top 10 Bond girls video. Until next time, bye bye.